6:30 p.m. Welcome, everyone. And I'd like to recognize the public. Hello, public. And the rules of procedure, you all know that we have established rules of procedure in regard to how the select board and the public interact with each other in regard to meetings, and we can forego that for this evening. But if anybody has any questions, I have them in my hand here, the rules of procedure. Questions or should be addressed to the chair of the meeting. And there were other rules, but I don't think we need to go through them tonight. Are there any additions to the agenda?
I have none.
Okay, are there any changes to the agenda order?
I also have none.
Very good. Then our next order of business is to select a new chair and vice chair because of the resignation of our beloved chairwoman, chairman, Sheila Morse, chair. And so we need to, do I hear a motion for a chair?
I would like to nominate Richard Bazansky.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Oh, that's quick.
Is there any discussion?
Well, you probably...
I have something to say.
Well, I just wanted to... Usually at town meetings, somebody else has to sort of briefly run the meeting, don't they? Well,
Nope, not in this instance.
No, oh, good. Okay, well, go on, Richard.
So I am happy to accept the elect. First of all, does anyone else want to be the chair? That's the question that I have. Would anyone else like to be the chair?
No, thank you.
Michael?
You're doing a great job.
I feel like I would need more experience.
And you've got a
Miranda?
great assistant chair.
Nope.
Okay, so I am happy to take on the chairpersonship, but I do travel somewhat, and so I would need the patience of the town and the select board to understand that I would be facilitating meetings remotely, and Peter and I have discussed how we would do that remotely. Peter and I, if I were not here, would have to have our meeting remote by telephone. And if that's all right with the select board, then I will accept the chair of the board.
Well, would, not having persons, but principals, would the vice chair preside over a meeting if the chair weren't there, just sort of automatically, or?
No. The way the state law is written is as long as the chair can communicate in some form, electronic form. So one of Sheila's last requests was for us to set up some form of Skype or other form of video conferencing to enable the chair to be able to be present.
Well, I think that's the
In a
important
less
piece.
awkward manner.
But state law doesn't demand that. The chair can do it via telephone.
I think it's just difficult for the person via telephone to chair a meeting with the public that they can't see.
Yep.
So I think there would be challenges there. If we can do the video, great. Otherwise,
since
we
we
can
have
talk
this-
about whether the
Yep,
vice chair would sit in,
Right.
with the chair. But I think it would be awkward.
Yep, and since we have this new screen and a new
Yep, great.
projector, it shouldn't be difficult at all to
It
get
could
that
be
set
just
up.
like
Excellent.
Big Brother.
Well, in my case, little brother.
But yes, that would work.
Did I have a second for that?
Yes.
Veranda,
I
Thank you, Miranda.
Before
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Now we need to elect a vice chair. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to nominate Michael to think about vice chair. Now, let me kind of explain. One, you've had some time, on the board. As I look forward, to this board, moving, down the road, I feel strongly, and I know you're a busy guy, but you add a dimension to this board as a parent of younger children in our community. And I think you give, a good, fresh kind of view from that perspective that would be a healthy addition to the leadership on the board. But I haven't discussed this with Michael, so I'll let him talk to that.
I appreciate the nomination. I might ask if anyone else is interested, and I feel like I'm still relatively fresh here, and I hear what you're saying, and I do think I do bring that sort of family parent perspective, so I would like to be able help in that sense. But I'm wondering if Veranda, would you have any interest since you've been doing this longer? Have a little more experience?
Well,
I would be interested after doing it for a year, getting just a little more experience. But if no one else is,
I
You'll
mean-
also be assisted along the way should you need to do things. And remember, it's only until town meeting day, and then it starts all over again with 4
Mhm.
months. So.
well, I would do it until town meeting day, although I'm wondering about you, Gordon.
I would very happily step into the role, but with me stepping off the board, I think it's important to have the continuity. Personally, as I've been on this board and kind of watched the process, I think it's important for the leadership transition on the board to be as consistent as possible. And I thought, because the assistant chair role is not as painstaking, I will say, generally, as the chair is.
I mean, I have to take pains.
Responsibility. It's more in the support role. And that's why I thought I think Michael would be a good addition to the leadership on the board, but having the 4 months, certainly, I know you're fairly new still, but you've gotten a good handle to, the process. I could do it if the board feels strongly about it. I just thought that it would be better to have someone transition into that role who will be on the board past town meeting day.
Well, if elected.
If elected, but Michael won't be in that position to be elected, I don't think. You're not, I think it's
Right, you
Sheila
have
and
it.
I.
My term will be up.
Oh,
I will
yours
be-
is up too?
I think so.
It's good.
I
It's
think
going to be
it's Sheila
Sheila
and I.
and Gordon.
That were the 2 terms.
You mean my term?
Your term is 3 years.
Yeah, you have another year before you
Oh,
have to
okay.
be reelected. So you're another possibility on
well,
that as well.
I can.
Are you going to confirm this?
I'm going to confirm this.
Okay.
I think we staggered it so when we
It
went
is
to a
staggered.
5-member
It is
board, so that there were
staggering.
no more than 2 becoming.
Well, I'll be happy to be the vice chair. It would be nice to know what the job description is for the vice
Oh.
chair, because I had originally thought that the vice chair would need to be presiding over a meeting when the chair is not there, but since that is not the case, what does the vice chair do?
Support the chair. I mean, if say he's away for, vacation or a family funeral or something that he just can't do, then it would fall upon the vice chair, whomever that is.
I see.
By the way, Veranda is correct. It is Veranda and Gordon are
I'm
up for
sorry.
re-election this year,
So-
and Sheila actually would have another year on her term.
Oh, see, I didn't
because she
realize that.
resigned.
I thought she.
If Zahn wishes to continue, he will have to run.
Oh.
So we will technically have.
I missed that, I apologize.
We'll
It's
have
you and I
technically
then.
3 people running this year,
Same.
which is a little bit off.
Well, I'll be the vice chair if people want me to be, but I guess we have to have a motion, don't
Well,
we?
so Gordon has moved to nominate Michael, and Michael respectfully withdrew his.
Did you withdraw?
That was my
I will
interpretation.
respectfully decline. I would like to have 1 year experience, and I have a 3-year term, I believe. Is that correct? So,
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. Good.
So I think
You do
after
have a
a year, I
3-year
would
term.
consider.
So I need another motion then.
So if Veranda is then willing, I will make a motion for Veranda to become our vice chair.
Do I have a
If she's
second?
I'll
comfortable
second.
with that.
Thank you, Michael. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Aye. And the motion is carried.
Well,
Congratulations.
I will humbly take on this task.
Good job.
Okay, then, the minutes of the meeting of August 26th. Do I have a motion to approve those or not?
I will make a motion to approve.
Do I have a
Minutes.
second?
I will second.
All those, is there any discussion?
Yes, I wanted to just have a general feeling. When we talked about the CC4G in the minutes, the overview did not really talk about what it means, this new opportunity up at the Delta campus. And What I just wondered as a group, does anyone else feel it's important to kind of outline what that means for Guilford children? Because there was a lot of discussion about that, but none of it hit the minutes, and I just wondered if I'm the only one who thought maybe that's important to hit the minutes, or it's on video, it's a history, so it doesn't really matter.
I agree, I think it should be, and she did, I mean, it should be what Dana said.
Right.
And if the minutes didn't have what she said, which was that Guilford children would have priority, a certain number of Guilford children.
Exactly,
would have
there were
priority.
two mentions of it, I believe. And so I guess we could, if others feel it's important, maybe we could add that to the minutes, revise them to reflect what Dana said specifically, where it reflected Guilford
Yeah, I think
kids.
that's a very good point. So do we have a motion to accept the minutes with that?
With amendments?
With amendments?
Certainly.
So, Michael, would you like to amend your original motion to approve?
Sure, let's amend.
Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, so the minutes
Aye.
have been approved with amendments. And Peter, I guess you'll have to listen to the video or read Dana's
It's fine,
handout. It's-
well, she spoke a little bit more than just the handout, and so
Yeah, I think it would be helpful to just review what Dana said on camera.
I will amend them and then
Thank you.
get them for your signature later.
Great. The next item on our agenda is a general update from the highwayman.
Good afternoon, people.
Good afternoon.
Good evening, Dan.
Well, I guess we got first, the hollow paving is all done, as far as the paving part. They gotta come back in and do shoulder work. And I thought they were gonna come back in last Friday and do that. But they haven't gotten in touch with me to when they're gonna come in and do it. Because we haven't paid for that yet, because one of the payment problem is when they get it done, then they can submit a bill and it'll be all done. Then, I'm getting prices on doing edge lines on all the blacktop roads, the white lines on the edge. So I'm gonna do, because we haven't done it, and I'd like to try doing every 4 or 5 years. So it's about 5 cents a foot for a single white line. So I'm gonna get prices on that, get our lines taken care of. And then I call the state, because the state does the center lines every year. And I'm waiting for them to come in to do the center lines on the new blacktop that they did. And it would probably be towards the end of this month before they come in and get it done. So that was the other thing. Then we've been doing a lot of culverts. Right now we're working on Gordon's Road. We put a big culvert in there. Last Thursday, the Wyndham Regional came out and we went riding the roads for our grants that they give us for stone line ditching, and we got that included in some stone line ditching we gotta do on Carpenter Hill Road. So, which would be good. And then also they did a little video. They've been going around in different towns. Jordan met the guy who was doing the video, and on the Green River watershed on how important it is to doing a stone line ditching. And so that'll probably be coming out in a couple of weeks on whatever. He asked me a bunch of questions, and I just answered them best we could. So. Then on the equipment side, our tractor developed a little problem today, or more. The hydraulic pump housing split, so it was blowing oil out the side of the hydraulic pump.
Oof.
So tomorrow, I'm gonna be loading that on the trailer, taking it down to Greenfield, down to the John Deere dealer, for them to work on it. And unfortunately, the tractor ran out of warranty last September, or something like that. So I went down there this afternoon, because I took pictures. I wanted them to see where it was, showing them where, and I asked them if they were having any problems with that model tractor in that year. And so they were gonna check in, and I'll find out tomorrow what's going on.
Okay.
Then the other thing is, when we set our capital plan up, we were gonna buy 2 trucks this year. And we bought one in the springtime, and we're gonna wait until this fall to get another one. So I had my electronic signboard, the big signboard, we had problems with it. One of them, it was acting up, so I had to take it to Barry last Wednesday. And then from there, I went to Jericho to the international dealer and looked at several different trucks, used ones. Because it's gonna be replacing the 98, which when we bought that one, it was used, because the only reason we bought a used one was because we're gonna be putting a chloride tank in it, so I don't wanna put the chloride tank in a brand new truck.
Right.
And I looked at, they had two nice trucks up there that were in really, really good shape. One of them is an 09, it's an International. They just put a brand new motor in it. That one is more like what I would be looking for. That they want 72.9 for that one. Then they had another one the town of Shelburne just traded in, which is a 2012. That had a different style body, which I couldn't get my skid tank in for the chloride in it. So that one was about $2,000 cheaper, but it's going to have a 2-year warranty on the engine, and that truck is very, very clean. Going to have a plow wing. Be another truck that we'll have on, because I want to park the older truck and just save it. You know, because we've been having some trouble with it, and I just want to get something more updated to replace that, because that's a main piece of equipment that we sand with in the wintertime, and we'll be using it, you know, quite a bit. So I just don't want to blindside you guys. We're buying a truck. I mean, just want to give you guys a heads up. All I got to do is say if we're interested in it, just say, we're interested in it, so they'll hold it, so they won't sell it. Or we can just say, no, we're just whatever, so.
And just so the select board is aware, we had previously budgeted $100,000 for a used truck for this purpose. So when Dan spoke to them last winter, they were saying they knew they'd be getting 2 in this fall, which is part of why you delayed the purchase. And they were guessing anywhere from 60 to 75. So this is within the price range, and it's less than we budgeted for.
And the wing and the plow will all fit.
Yeah, it's all, I
That's
got
it.
pictures
So-
if anybody wants to see it.
Oh, sure.
It's all right here.
What do you want to do?
I would like to, to go with this one here. I mean, if anybody wants to see pictures.
That's the first one, the 72.9.
Yeah, and this is the other one that,
Well, the
they're
other
both,
one-
they both look
Yeah,
the same.
you
The
said
only
the other
can't
one,
use
the
it.
other-
just a
the
different
other-
style body.
Right, but we
Yeah.
can't
Right,
use
you
that
can't
one
use
anyway.
that one, right?
That one's
And that one also.
This one's a tub body, it's a rounded body, the other one's just like a regular square dump body.
And that one has the new engine in it.
Yeah, that one's got a brand new engine with a 2-year warranty to go with it on the engine.
And she looked pretty clean.
Oh, yeah, it looked very clean. I was very impressed with it. So,
Well, I think we have this budgeted and planned, so do we need a motion on this?
I don't think.
Well, generally we do, you guys have made a motion to give Dan the authority to begin the negotiation process, and then he generally comes back with the final price.
Right.
Because this is just kind of the estimate.
Right.
and I did
But
talk with the dealer today to see if there's any wiggle room. He said there may be just a
squeak.
little bit, not much.
Negotiate the hell out of it.
Yeah, Dan, where's your budget? Well, I make a motion that we allow Dan to start the negotiation process on purchasing this new truck,
Do I have
or
a-
this truck.
When were we originally planning to,
In the spring.
in the spring?
Yeah.
Last spring.
Last,
Last price.
We were gonna pull the trigger on
And
both
it's-
trucks,
Oh,
but
okay.
they thought we would have a better opportunity
Yeah.
waiting for for a truck coming in this fall.
and it's in the
we held
capital
off.
budget.
So it's happening within the
We've
timeframe
already
we were
planned,
planning.
exactly, and it's happening within the time frame we had planned.
Do I have a second?
Of course.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
So Dan, I have.
Give him hell, Dan.
I'll try to. I mean, I usually,
You're pretty good at it.
when we, bought, if Dickie was around here, because he went with me when we bought the purple truck.
Yep.
Because the other truck that we had, that it was falling apart, and when I made the deal, we went up, took the truck up, we did all the paperwork, and he never came out and looked at the truck, and he comes out and looks at the truck, and he goes, "Where's the body?" And I told him, I said, "I didn't tell you there was a body on it."
Thank you, Dan.
So I had, Dan, I had a question from a resident on Sweet Pond Road who was curious about the mowing by the sides of the road, and that it seemed like there was a lot more sort of cutting saplings as well as mowing grass.
The more he can get with that machine, the less we have to hand cut.
I see.
Them little saplings that, in the wintertime, they get ice, snow on
Lean over.
Bend over
them.
into
They're into the
road.
windshields, they're cracking your mirrors. So the more you can get with that machine, the better off it is.
Yeah, well,
Jimmy's doing a very good job.
No, he really
He's getting
is
that-
exceedingly diligent.
And it's taking time, because he's
Yes.
reaching back and he's doing a lot of good mowing, so.
Yeah,
But he ain't gonna get, well, now that problem, I don't know, it'll be a couple weeks probably for that,
Right.
but I mean, the
West
way,
Guilford's gonna have
the
to
way he's
wait.
been mowing, he's not gonna get everything done this year.
well, that's what we imagined,
Yeah,
but
he's-
it's good to have a clear answer for people.
Right. I mean, he would've had Sweet Pond Road done today.
Right.
I was gonna put him on the blacktop over in West Guilford instead.
Yeah, West Guilford is gonna, I'm gonna have to talk to my neighbors. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna have an
Well,
uproar.
the way he's mowing, I mean, it's taking.
Well, no, but that's why it's been so good.
Yeah.
Let's get that baby back up and running quickly.
Well,
Thank
thanks a
you.
lot.
On to our next item, which is a presentation from the Brattleboro Development Credit Corp. And we'd like an update, please. And would you introduce yourselves? And
Thank
you're
you.
welcome to come to the table, please.
Hi there.
Yeah, you can have chairs and everything.
Did you sign in?
I did,
You
yes.
did.
Two of you?
Thanks. A little overdressed, it was school picture day at work.
So you look fabulous.
Thank you, thank
Jen,
you.
would you mind sliding aside?
Why don't
Sorry,
we,
sorry.
we'll slide up, you guys can slide
Okay.
over, and that
Take one,
way
pass it
Ian
on.
can capture you.
I should keep one, just go through. Hi, I'm Jen Stromston. I'm from
Hi.
the BDCC. I'm the Director of Programs. Nice to see you all.
Nice to see
Hi,
you.
Adam Grunald, Executive Director. Good to be here. So thank you for having us tonight. You've heard a lot about the work we do, so we want to just make sure that we're able to provide some update on some of the new programs that we're offering this year. But really just take an opportunity to hear from you what some of the needs are, the challenges that you're facing, and make sure that you're aware of some of the programs and opportunities that the state offers, as well as our organization and our staff.
I'll give you like the 2-minute speed through because your folder has some data, which we'd like to do. And we had another delightful Pasha Guilford kid for this summer, Caleb's younger brother Pete, and another nice intern from Caston College who did some data for the towns for us. And then there's materials on different programs. I'm not going to talk about all of them. You're all amazing readers, I'm sure. I want to highlight some things that are new or updated. So our high schools program, P3, Pipelines and Pathways, we hired someone last year who spent the year in the schools, meeting with teachers, working with superintendents, principals, guidance counselors, and that was sort of our research and planning and some leveling up year. We were already doing some activities in the high schools, but this is kind of the year when we go full throttle on P3. So you'll be seeing a lot more about activities with the high schools. We'll keep doing the sophomore summit, which brings all the sophomores into Brattleboro for sort of a day of career exploration and field trips, but you'll be seeing more field trips for Manufacturing Month. We're doing sort of a whole spurt of those. You'll be seeing a lot more activities in the schools, helping kids get sort of ready in a lot of different ways, thinking about career ideation. You know, I'm going to go to college, but maybe I'm thinking more clearly about for what. And maybe I know that I'd like to live here in the future, and maybe I do or don't want to go to college, and I'd like to know what the different options are to work in this area if I'd like to spend my life in this area. So you'll be seeing more P3 in the future. We
Excuse me, what does P3?
Pipelines and Pathways
Okay.
program. Yes, it's the high schools program.
Okay,
yeah.
right.
And none of us can ever remember its pipelines, so we got P3.
Oh, P3.
Yeah, Pipelines and Pathways program.
Okay.
Yes, exactly.
Can I interrupt you for a minute and just ask, could you tell us what the mission of your organization is?
Sure, we can back up all the way to the beginning.
I'm
Yeah.
just interested in hearing you say what the mission is.
I'll let Adam do that because
Okay.
he's the best at that because he's in charge.
Sure. So, backing way up, even before mission, is Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation and SEVIDS. You often will see those two intermixed. So the Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation is a regional development corporation. We're one of 12. We have an official contract with the state of Vermont to be the eyes, ears, boots on the ground for economic development in the Wyndham region. That is our original role. Sevitz was formed in 2011, came out of a grassroots effort in the Deerfield Valley. A bunch of people are saying, how come we don't have broadband? How come we can't get cellular? Why do we need to rely on a tourism-based industry? How do we get year-round? So that group formed to really try to understand what some of the barriers were to their local economy, and out of that came Sevitz. Sevitz was formed as an affiliate entity of the BDCC, so it has its own board, its own budget, but it has no staff. So instead it contracts with the BBCC to implement its strategic priorities. So they're two very similar. One, if you think of it as more of the think tank and working on those long-term strategies, and BDCC is building the programs and the projects. So the mission is to create a vitality for the economy by working with businesses for the benefit of the citizens.
Great. Well
And all
done.
the funding for the credit corp comes from state or federal, correct?
Yeah, so we get, through a contract, an annual contract, $108,000 a year to fulfill all of the needs of that contract. It should be much, much more, but the state is limited, so they help fund each RDC with that. And from that, we're tasked with working with all the regional businesses to try to ensure that those businesses are aware of the resources that the state has and that the federal government has, that the municipalities have, and then in the case of our area, the region has.
And I think historically for Guilford residents, one of the rubs on this whole thing has been there's not a lot of businesses in
Right.
Guilford that are able to take advantage of what the credit corp offers. And therefore, the value for Guilford is Sevitz, and then the whole Sevitz piece gets funded primarily through the towns. Is that accurate?
That is absolutely.
Okay. Is it 100% through the towns?
We also are raising some funds from some businesses looking to support the programs.
Right.
So there
There are no
are
federal or
Correct.
State dollars.
At a time we were getting funding from the state that no longer to help plan for the VY impact. Those funds have gone away.
Great.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Want to continue with the
No,
program?
that's
Yeah,
thank you.
sorry.
And, well, and actually, so because I really was doing it backwards in a way, one of the most important things that Sevitz just completed was the renewal of the 5-year plan. So sort of what came out of that work in the Deerfield Valley years ago was what became a 5-year plan, the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategies, another acronym. But it is a federally approved plan that helps us sort of have some unity around like what we're trying to achieve and then some strategies. And it also frankly helps us raise money. You know, when we go to the USDA and apply for a grant for a business development something, there are extra points for being part of a thoughtful long-term plan. And so that's sort of what the federal government wants to see. It's also what the state wants to see. They want to know that we're not just fumbling around and that we've consulted with communities and brought in sort of, you know, grassroots community members to work on that. So
before you launch in that, one of the concerns, we hear this a lot, and really what we're tasked with, and I think doing better, is listening more. So, you know, the concern about how do we connect the work that we do with areas that don't have a lot of business. We spend a lot of time really thinking about that, and we've got a circumstance right now where there's a business that's looking to relocate to the region, a significant number of jobs and opportunities, and they only want to locate to an area that has the workforce available. So while the job may reside in Brattleboro or Rockingham, the workforce is coming from the region, and it's that workforce that we look to really connect, as well as the short term, but also through the P3 for that long-term career pathway.
yeah, and another example of sort of how we're, you know, a lot of the towns around our, you know, bedroom communities, they don't have a lot of businesses right there, but I just went, one of the things we've been, I was going to tell you about all the good things we got funding for, but something we haven't been able to get funded is more capacity for succession planning. There are a lot of companies that are in the hands of really brilliant but ready to retire entrepreneurs. And so I went, and so we've put in some applications that haven't succeeded yet. We're going to keep trying to fund this because it's such a growing problem that losing that company is a real tragedy. And it's much harder to start and grow new companies than it is to have that company go into the hands of new people who want to run it and take it on. And it's what most entrepreneurs want. It's what most people who are looking to retire really wish for, is to put their company that they built themselves into the hands of someone else.
Excuse me, do you have an example of
Yes,
one of those?
yeah, I just
companies?
met with RT Brown, who's our business development person, and I just went and met with, I will mispronounce the name of the folks who have the ESL publishing company. They're Guilford residents, and they are, they are folks who are really like have an amazing company that they've built. And they are interested in, who's going to take it on and take it
Now,
on.
this is English as a second language.
Yeah.
It's a publishing company or?
Yeah, yeah, and this is the kind of, thing that we go about all the time looking for. We are not in a position to offer as many business services as are needed all the time out there. I mean, that's just the reality. As Adam said, we get $108,000 a year from the state, and we're trying to do our best. So we know from talking to entrepreneurs all the time, that to business people who own companies here, that that they are looking to put their company into the hands of the next person. We want to work on both sides of that. That includes teaching people to become business folks, to become business leaders, and to be able to take on something like that, and also helping those folks who have businesses to put those into the hands of someone else. So that's an example. And there are people that we know that work in companies that are obviously Guilford residents. About the majority of, actually, I think it's the majority of the workforce that comes into Brattleboro is coming from outside of Brattleboro every day, so I mean, they're coming from like here and around here. So that's one of the kinds of things that we do. Another area that I just want to touch on, and I don't want to go over the agenda time, I know meetings get long, but we have obviously worked with the town on broadband. There's sort of connectivity events that we have put on in the last couple of years, and that and other programs that we've done, the grant writing training that we did in Bellows Falls this year. A lot of, I think, some folks from this community and various nonprofits came to that. The webinars, we put on webinars. It is basically all part of a program to serve communities better, and it was called the Southern Vermont Economy Project. And so there's a lot of information about that in here. The point of that is CEVEDS gave us the capacity to figure out the need for that and to go out into the world and try to find funding for building the capacity in towns. That grant just ran out. That was a USDA grant that we were able to match with money. When you go for money from the federal government, you have to come with money, right? So CEVEDS dollars helps us. Yes, CEVEDS dollars helps us come in with the that one-to-one match. And it just ran out. It was highly competitive, and we just found out that we got an award again. So we're going to be able to restart the Southern Vermont Economy Project, which is news. We haven't really announced it very publicly yet, and keep going with grant writing training and capacity building and board building and all kinds of things that were really in response to what communities were asking for. How do we sign up to become Sam's and Dunn's numbered, so we can make those applications ourselves? How do we, learn how to use technology so we can allow our chair people to, participate with sort of less of a burden when there's travel or weather. So we're excited about that, and that's something that Guilford has participated pretty vigorously in, and also helped us shape what we chose to do, frankly. So I'll stop there.
Are there any
Maybe
questions
Yeah.
from the select board for these folks?
What about from the public? Did anybody here have any comments or questions?
I guess I could ask about, I know we had a lot of talk at our town meeting about the CEVED stuff, and I wondered if you guys had talked about that, and we ended up not funding the CEVED, and then I wondered if you had talked about it and had a response, or if you were going to change anything, or...
I think that, I'll respond and say, we've talked about it a lot. I mean, we spend, really honestly hundreds of hours petitioning and then going to select board meetings. We have 27 towns that we serve, and then we also, there's about 8 of us staff that go to, who are maintenance folks, and folks have to be at the buildings, who go out to town meetings. I go to 4, and you go to 5 or 6. We talk about all of that, because, and Guilford, asking for help, frankly, establishing clarity about what is the relationship between CEVEDS and BDCC. I mean, that's a common refrain, because it is confusing. you know, let's just say you're not the only folks who have the same questions. I think we're doing our best to sort of explain how it works. And I think you and I have talked privately sort of about like why it works that way, why we've established something that we think, you know, frankly doesn't waste a lot of money in, you know, extra and having two different staffing structures. But it is hard to understand. It does give us the tools to, you know, again, have money to go to, that we can use to match, to go after federal dollars. It gives us, you know, frankly, two very different pieces of the organization that complement each other. And one is very much focused on running things and running things diligently, and that's BDCC, and it's, you know, accountable for the dollars and cents and the impacts. But SevEds is really about strategy, and it's what differentiates us from the other RDCs. There are no other RDCs like us in Vermont, and I will say that boldly and loudly. You know, that no one else has the ability to create a regional strategic plan, you know, in partnership with Bennington as we did, and no one else has the kinds of programs in the high schools and programs, you know, serving businesses and trying to get ahead of succession planning. And SevEds is what makes that possible. And you know, I work with it every day, and I wouldn't disagree that it's complicated, but it's also what makes possible the extra work that we do.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's all about the money, but has nothing to do about the money. So for us, really, it was when we were getting funding from the town of Brattleboro when we first started, and that select board said, we're going to give you a challenge. Go out and raise equal dollars and come back to us with that. We don't want to be the only ones funding this. And at first, you know, that was a big, heavy lift. We were, at the time, a group of volunteers. But we did it, and what we quickly found that the most value we were getting from that was not necessarily the dollars, but it was the education, it was the engagement, it was the understanding that no one else is coming to name your town in Windham County to do this work. And no one town can do it alone. We have to do it together. We have to identify what those strategies are, and together we're stronger. And all told, last year we raised from 74% of Windham County residents contributed through their municipal requests, raising about $82,000. So that's spread out over all the communities in Windham County. And that money, as Jennifer alluded to, is very powerful because it's flexible. So we get to take that and we leverage that many times over. So that request from one town turns into all those towns that fund it, which then turns into leveraged money for the USDA. So that small one community, $3,000, $5,000 turns into $250,000. And it does take every one of those towns making that commitment to say, yes, that's a strategy, we're going to follow it. We now understand it, we're connected, and we support it. So what we know is that we can communicate, and we can improve how we communicate. It will never be good enough. It really won't, because this is complex stuff, and we're baked into New England municipal government, town by town, and this is regional work, so we have to break through those barriers, and that challenge will just always be there. But it's important work. We're committed to it.
Do you have an impact statement? Is there an impact statement in the annual report? Because it's, for an organization like yours, I would really recommend having what is it that it's statistically, quantitatively accomplished.
So on the back here is a nice way. It's not, it doesn't say everything that we do, but it talks
not
about
what you do, but what you've accomplished. Yes,
what are the outcomes? So 158,000 resulted in $47 million investment into the region. And from that investment, we have impact numbers on jobs, quality of jobs, the wages of jobs.
So I would suggest that if you come back to Guilford, one thing you might think of, one approach you might think of taking is to equate the impact statement with the impact on Guilford, because I think that would be attractive to our citizens.
It is, and it's one of the challenges, I will say, in regional work, is every town says, what have you done for us? Mm-hmm. And us is defined by the barrier or the border of the town,
right,
versus the region. But I hear you, and we are trying to do that. If anyone has ideas on how we can connect specifically with individuals or businesses in the community to hear more about that, we are really trying to listen.
Good. I mean, one example that comes to my mind, and I know we have to end here, but is, you know, if you're in the Brattleboro Union High School, how many Guilford young people are touched by your economic development training, for instance?
Yes.
That's one thing that I would look at. And,
Yeah.
and various, so in each one of your program sets, find out how many Guilford people are involved.
And I think that's going to become easier, especially with the high schools having a staff person who's there. That's been something, you know, obviously they're careful about information about kids, as they should be.
Yes.
But we have a full-time educator who's in the school, so it's a very different relationship now, and that will definitely become easier to communicate.
Good.
Yeah.
Any other questions from either the select board or our distinguished public?
Excellent.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for the update.
coming.
We appreciate you coming in.
See you.
And now the next item on our agenda is an update from the Brook Community Center. Please take a chair up here.
Yes, Don?
We're not going to be here very long, so.
Hi.
Hi, and please introduce yourself for the public.
Our studio audience.
Hello.
I'm Don McLean. I'm the Vice President of Brook Community Center, Inc., and Chair of the Programs and Partnerships Committee, which has developed the now 3 partnerships that we have with various entities, one of which is with the town of Guilford, which is why we're here this evening. And I'd like to very quickly introduce you to our new 3 months, right?
Oh, no, longer. It's March.
It's March.
Yeah.
But that's really 6 months.
It's like
Jamie Durham is our fairly new
Jamie.
Hi, Jamie.
administrative manager. I'm very excited that we've gotten to the point where for the first time in, I think, 130 years, right, of that building being there, we now have a staff person in the building, which I think is a great stride. And we are just here to check in and to say hello, to introduce
Hi.
Jamie. And our board, through this committee, suggested that we maintain check-ins with we have 3 partners. And so we've decided that we will make quarterly visits to the select board since the town is one of our partners. Our first partnership was with Brook Range organization itself. The second, which we concluded early this year, was with the town of Guilford, and we now have a partnership with Guilford Cares. And the partners have special relationship to the organization and use of the building. And that's almost my whole speech, but we wanted to just get a sense if there are any concerns or any questions from the select board for us relating to this partnership.
Do you see the activity from the town, from organizations in the town?
Yes.
Or populations in the town accelerating in regard to the use of the BBCC?
Mm-hmm. I would say we have more going on now than a year ago.
That's good.
And Jamie's really doing the day-to-day calendar and building use, so she can comment on that.
Sure, I was reviewing our contract with you. I just emailed the 2 of you the agreement because we have 2 other copies that Dawn has if anybody wants to look at it.
Anybody need a copy?
In the partnership agreement, it says 40 days. The library uses a lot of those days as part of its library camp. They did 20 days this year, and the library's put on a few other events as well. And then there was like election day, green up day. So it was probably around 30 days.
Good, so we're
at this
getting good use
point.
out of it.
Yeah, with some room to spare.
I've heard really good things about the senior hangout.
Yes.
Yeah, Guilford
Days.
Cares.
It's hopping.
Yeah, it's really open on Thursdays.
A lot of
place to be.
mahjong, some Scrabble.
Yes.
Yeah.
Learning about
Yeah, that's
advanced directives,
exciting.
all those fun things.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, Thursday is, we're calling it Guilford Cares Day,
Yeah.
and the arrangement with them is they have the food pantry at 5 o'clock anyway, and so the idea was that they would fill in the rest of Thursday with any activities they were interested in bringing in, starting with the Tai Chi, and then moving into this new middle of the day hangout. as it's called.
It's awesome.
And does Guilford Cares come underneath, under the town's 40 days? It's
No,
separate?
Guilford Cares
They
is-
have their own
They're the
contract.
partner
Right.
organization.
They're a separate partner.
Yeah.
And we did want to remind the town, although we understand that it's not really the select board that is specifically making most of these uses of the building, but rather your various departments, that somewhere around the first of the year, when we want to really get our schedule set, the three partners have priority in putting dates on the calendar for that year. And so we would encourage you and or your departments, particularly the library, obviously, which is the biggest user, but also the commissions that might want to have events to get their foot in the door, because the idea is to give those events priority
We should have a
before.
memo about
Yeah,
that.
we should send a reminder out.
Yeah, it wouldn't hurt. I mean, we obviously talked to.
And you want that by January 1st?
That's
or-
sort of the latest
Uh-huh.
date. I'm not accepting any reservations for 2020 until January from the public, with the idea that we'll get the dates from the partners before that.
So December sounds
So-
like a much better.
So we should have a memo that goes to.
And this, goes to things like general elections. It's pretty obvious there will be elections next year, but that would be an example of something that would be a priority. We wouldn't want to have somebody suddenly rent the building for a wedding on the first Tuesday in November, for example. And so that's the idea. And I think we'll keep reminding the library
Talk to
and
Kathy, getting
rec
the
commission and so
camp dates
forth.
would be helpful.
Sure. I'll send out a memo to everyone.
That'd be great.
to Have stuff submitted to you, Jamie, by December.
That'd be great.
Sure.
Great, thank you.
And so are there a number of other groups or rentals or anything that are happening there aside from the things you just mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, so the community center has 8 community days per
Oh,
year,
yes,
which
I
is an
know about that.
opportunity for anybody to rent the space for free for an event that's free and open to the public. That's the one stipulation, so.
Which is awesome.
Which is awesome. So we have one coming up on the 22nd. It's a harvest swap. That's organized by my neighbor, Sarah. And there's another community day on November 3rd. That's going to be a potluck and country dance with Andy Davis. And
Oh, wonderful.
I think we're sponsoring that. Sarah's sort
Yeah.
of sponsoring that
Right.
one. And then there's an open community day on December 22nd.
Just waiting for somebody to claim that.
Yeah. And we had one at the end of June that John
John,
organized,
yeah.
which was
Oh,
awesome.
yes.
That was the Free University of Guilford. I mean, there were so many people in and out of that building all day long, and all these different workshops happening, and it was really fantastic. There's also been a pickup in inquiries for various private events.
Great.
There's a clown workshop coming, this Italian clown master. He's coming from Italy, and then he's gonna come and do this
Pagliacci.
little clown workshop.
Do the homeschoolers have any kind
No,
of like official connection?
No,
with-
I've checked in a little bit with Anna and Sarah about the homeschool group, and we've sort of they're at the library right now. I don't know if you've heard anything recently with Anna. I mean, I have a pretty like open line of communication with Sarah and with the homeschool group.
Right.
I've got 2 little kids that are not in school yet, so for now they're staying at the library. We're sort of, I think I talked to you about it the last time we were in the space. There are issues with the center itself being like this historic building. So whenever we get a lot of kids in there, I get a little anxious. So we're sort of trying to figure out if it could be a good space. And right now the library is working out pretty well.
Mr. Chair, may I ask a question?
Yes.
This is Ian Keel, BCTV camera. That Italian clown workshop?
Yeah.
Is that locally with Nettie Lane?
Yeah, Nettie's organizing it.
I've studied under Nettie, and this is her mentor.
Yeah, Giovanni Fusetti.
And I believe he said that knowledge is scarce, but stupidity is infinite. So I would highly recommend. What date is that?
It's the 28th to the 30th of September. It might be full. There's a link on our website to his workshop on our events page.
Thank you for that indulgence.
Absolutely. Is that it?
That's fine with us.
Okay,
Yeah, I
any
mean-
questions from the public or the select board?
I would just say one more thing.
Oh,
Just
sure.
Thank you for your prompt payment of your partnership fee.
Well, you're very welcome, and thank you for offering the opportunity to be partners.
Well, also, I just wanted to say that the revitalization of that building is really as inspiring as it is a long time coming.
Mm.
So it's good for all of us, and it's great to see, our seniors really enjoying hanging out there.
And, the library, which once again gets back to the town's partnership auspices, had 4 weeks this year instead of the 3 that had been happening for a couple of years, so that's an increased use.
My son went to one of those camps
Uh-huh.
and had a great time. I'll just
Oh,
say
good.
that.
Yeah, it's a great thing, and it was sort of a partnership before we had partners anyway, because they were using the Grange Hall for years, and it's free for Guilford kids, which is
Astonishing,
astonishing.
really.
I've had talk to parents from other towns who say there's nothing else, we can't go to camp for free. So it's something great that we're offering, and the symbiosis of the library and the Grange Hall, and the fact that kids can start the morning in the Grange Hall and walk to the library for lunch and stuff is really nice. I think one of our goals, I was talking to somebody the other day about the fact that we keep coming back to the fact that a big goal for us has been revitalizing the village of Guilford Center. So it's not just what's going on in that building, but being part of the whole deal.
No, but it's working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And thank you for what you
Already.
do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Goody.
Moving on.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Jamie, thank you.
Sure.
for
Jamie and
coming.
Don,
It's good
yes.
to meet you.
Good
Don, good to see you.
Very good report. And our next item on the agenda is Peter giving us an update on the Emergency Management Conference,
Yes,
where we all hope that you learned a great deal and are going to share with us.
I did. I've got plenty to share with you
Okay.
folks.
You have 5 minutes.
So, 5 minutes. Oh, you shortened it.
10 minutes.
You gave me 10 minutes last week. Wow.
I'm sorry, I made a mistake, 10 minutes.
I planned for the 5 to 8 minute range,
Oh,
so you guys
good.
could have a few questions, should you have a few questions. Anyhow, without further ado, this past Friday and Saturday, I attended the annual Vermont Emergency Preparedness Conference. They changed the name from Emergency Management Conference to Emergency Preparedness Conference. As they've done for the past 3 years that I've attended, the event started with a plenary session. This year it was led by Scott Whittier of the National Weather Service in Burlington, very, very humorous meteorologist who really knew his stuff. And he ended up talking about the 50th anniversary of the 1969 snow and ice storm
Oh, I
that
remember that.
pounded Vermont and New England in general, which happened from the 22nd through 27th of December,
I had to
leaving,
walk up the hill.
which in some parts of Vermont left over 50 inches of snow. And anywhere from an inch to 2 inches of ice.
Yeah, it was brutal.
And so part of what he talked about is Vermont prepared for the next time we get a storm like this? Because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when we get one. And this was they calculate this to be approximately what's called a 50-year storm, which really doesn't mean much. It doesn't mean that it happens every 50 years. It just means that it only has about a 2% chance of occurring every year. As we've seen weather changing, the Midwest has had 500-year floods in the past 4 years. So it was just a really interesting and frank conversation he was having, whether or not, because Vermont has changed so much in the past 50 years, are we going to be more or less prepared than we were?
Did he have an answer?
He did not present an answer. He wanted participants to make suggestions. He left it open-ended. The overall consensus that I took away is I think in some ways we are more prepared, particularly because our road crews throughout the state have much better equipment to handle these types of storms than we did 50 years ago. But we have other things such as technology that we all rely on every day. People don't just have landlines. We have cell phones. We have our computers to pay our bills and communicate with loved ones in other parts of the country. That if we had a storm like that, would completely be demolished. I mean, parts of the state were without electricity and telephone service for almost 3 weeks. So he said, yes, in some ways we will. You know, people will be able to start getting back to work sooner than they did in 1969. But one of the conversations I had with the people from the state there is, you know, there's nothing the state can do about this, but our modern grocery stores really only have food for 3 to 5 days. I mean, fresh vegetables for 2 or 3 days, canned food for, 4 to 5 days. So if we have a week-long blizzard like this that shuts the roads down, we can't get trucks from, California or Texas or Mexico or wherever we get our food from. What's going to happen then? Because even in 1969, New England produced more of the food that was eaten here than we do today.
Uh-huh.
So even with all of that local ferment,
Yeah.
we still get foreign food?
Yeah, over 80% of the food that's
Wow.
consumed in New England comes from somewhere else.
In
So
New
anyhow-
England.
In New England.
Not
Yeah.
Vermont necessarily, but New England.
In New England.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Think of that orange that you like for breakfast.
Right, exactly.
So, anyhow, so the rest of the day was followed by smaller workshops that we all signed up for. For the rest of that day, the first one I attended was on cybersecurity in Vermont, since it's becoming a bigger issue for municipal and state governments. Unfortunately, of the entire weekend, this is probably my most disappointing workshop. And they kind of gave the 30,000-foot view from the perspective of someone who only knew how to access their email. Yeah, so unfortunately, I was a little disappointed personally. I was hoping that they would have more recommendations or ideas about how municipalities can work to kind of combat these things. And the presenter did give examples of 5 municipalities in New England who have been hit by this in the past 6 months. It was pretty crazy. Some of them opted to pay out large sums of money to
Right.
get their data back, and others said, nope, we'll start over again.
Wow.
At a huge cost.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, at least what I heard on NPR
Yep.
was that the municipality that refused had other options in
Yep.
reconsolidating their data, and
Yep.
the one that didn't just had no choice.
Yeah, the biggest one that he talked about was the City of Albany Police Department was completely shut down. They had no access to anything. I mean, the police officers didn't even know where they were being assigned for work for the day, let alone access to any of the information that they needed. And they ended up paying out. And they were lucky it was restored, because a lot of times what happens is they pay out and it doesn't get restored.
Nothing happens, yeah.
But the rest of Friday, I ended up attending a series of workshops on municipal incident planning, and as well as ERAF. And I don't know if you remember from our whole 1.5-year process with the flood and fluvial erosion. ERAF is the Emergency Relief and Assistance Funding. The workshops for the rest of the day were really, really great. So annually, we have to update our local emergency management plan, and Sheila, in her role as the EMD, has been really on top of that and has done a great job. And Guilford is much further ahead than most other municipalities. And as far as the ERAF, without having adopted our river corridor
Right.
protection, we have the highest eligibility that we can get for funding. So the remainder, when we have our next natural disaster declaration, the town will have to pay that additional 5% that we won't get through ERAF.
And I think that's a really important point that the select board and you need to make to the town. You
And we
know,
try to.
just that, well, I mean, now, it's a done deal and this will be the result.
Yeah. And I was
One of the results.
I was speaking with one of the presenters on the municipal incident planning, and talking about that we didn't get it passed. And I think one of the unfortunate things is some people. So a lot of what the state was using when we were trying to do the flood and fluvial erosion ordinance was that comparing it to when Irene hit Guilford. And while Guilford did suffer losses and had quite a bit of damage, it was nothing compared to what other parts of the state had.
Right.
Oh, for sure.
And so the amount of money that we would have gotten back for what we had from Irene wouldn't have been that much money. But what if we would have been hit like
Like
Some of
Bethel.
these
like
towns
Bethel
were-
or Jamaica or Londonderry, who had,
Wilmington.
that had, you know, $5 or $7 million worth of damage.
Exactly.
Then if residents have to dig deeper in their pockets for tax time to pay that extra 5%, then there's going to be a different story going to be talked about. But for the time being, we are in the best place we can be in, and that was really encouraging to hear.
Good.
Saturday, I think, was the better of the 2 days, and I attended a series of really in-depth workshops on what's called local hazard mitigation planning, as well as disaster management. And I thought it was really important for me to go to these workshops because the local hazard mitigation plan gets rewritten every 8 years, and ours expires this year and needs to be redone this spring. We will get assistance from Wyndham Regional Commission to do so. However, with Sheila stepping down from her role as the select board chair, I don't know this yet, but I'm presuming she's eventually going to step down as the EMD.
I imagine.
And we're going to need someone who has some knowledge about what to do with this. And so during one of the workshops, I learned that actually this Friday of this week that we're in, there's a joint training that's being held by both the State Emergency Management Organization and FEMA on how to write a hazard mitigation plan. And so without consulting you, I apologize, but I signed up for the course. It's free of charge. You just have to,
Great.
That's awesome.
you just have to pay for me to go up there.
Yeah, but we'll need that kind of knowledge.
Yeah, but I thought it would be really important.
Makes sense.
And so they just did one last push because they had
Yep.
4 open seats left that they wanted to fill the course.
Good.
So I signed up for that. So I think that will be really helpful come the spring when we need to rewrite this. And from a conversation with Sheila a couple of weeks ago, the one that we do have is in a pretty decent position, but you know, it was written 8 years ago, so we're gonna have to make some changes to it. And then.
And the major changes will be based on different regulations or different
I'll tell you after
mapping?
Friday.
Oh, okay, great. It would be good to.
So I don't know a whole lot about it, but besides what Sheila had informed me about a
Yeah.
couple weeks ago.
Well, the rest of us, without Sheila especially, you know, I think in order to, you know, we're going to need a new emergency manager, and I'm presuming that's not going to be you.
Well, so that was my last point that I was going to talk about from one of the workshops, as well as so while Sheila's still temporarily filling that role, I think that it's something that you guys are going to need to address in the near future, because I'm making the assumption since she stepped down from her other work, she's likely going to be stepping down from that at some point in the not too distant future.
Well, especially as she's going to be traveling.
Right, exactly. And so I did have a conversation with Rich Cogliano. He works for the state. You guys have heard his name before, just about what we can do. And one of the previous conversations was whether or not I should fill the role or not. And he's saying that the state's starting to take a position that town administrators and town managers are really good people to take the role of EMD, because people who are on the fire department, or if you have a local police department or other volunteer services like that, are going to be busy. You don't want it to be one of your road crew members, you know, your foreman or whomever, because they're going to have work on the ground that they need to do, and this person needs to have more of a managerial background for this. At the moment, aside from Sheila, I'm the one that has had the most training. You guys, 2 years ago, you guys sent me to the 3 trainings, and I did finish those. So I think it's a somewhat frank discussion that you as a board need to have about who's going to fill this role. And if it's not me, then somebody else is going to have to go and take a bit of training. The other thing that they talked about, and this might be my last point, is this past winter, the state started a program to provide education and certification for emergency management directors in the state. We're one of the first states to do so. They just had their first class graduate, however you want to call it, at the seminar this year. It involves 70 hours of training. Approximately half of that is online. The other half is in person up at the Vermont Emergency Management Center in Waterbury.
That's not mandatory for an EMD, right?
It's not
But
mandatory.
the state
but
is recommending
They're
it?
highly recommending it.
I would think so.
Because it provides the person in that role with exercises and training of how to deal with it. Because frankly, from what they were saying, is without that, when you actually have an emergency going on, it's rather overwhelming for people who don't have any of that training experience. Obviously, you guys can send whomever you want. You're not required to. The training, most of the training is free. It's just you have to pay someone to attend it if you don't have someone volunteer. I would happily go if you wanted me to, but that's up your decision of who you want to participate in that.
Well, I guess we don't need to make a decision right now.
None whatsoever.
But,
I'm just
mean,
presenting information for you for your thought.
Right, and I guess
And-
from my perspective as a select board member, you know, I would be curious to find out what kind of impact taking this on would have on the rest of your huge job description that you will already have. And, you know, just giving a realistic assessment of whether you feel you could keep that all happening.
I mean, I think that would be a great question to start with by asking Sheila, since she's been the one doing that position for the past couple of years. From my perspective, I already do, or have been over the past 2 years, once I got comfortable with my job, been assisting her with a lot of stuff. I've been doing more of those things. I also been the one that, I've organized the EOC. I know I set up the computers that we have there, so I know that back end. I know the information we have on our server, the documentation that we would need should that happen. And I did ask Rich, just because it was something that Sheila had mentioned in the past that she didn't have an answer to, is whether or not it would be a concern with, as you all know, I am not a Guilford resident, and whether or not there's any concern with me not living in Guilford and being an EMD. He said the state has no problem with it. He said throughout the state there's EMDs who do this work in one town and live 1 or 2 towns over. He said it's not a problem.
Well,
You
we'll take
probably
that up
wouldn't
for,
be able to get home anyway.
Right, well, there's that too.
anything
Anyhow,
else,
so
Peter?
Nope, that's it.
Okay.
I think, as I told Rich, because he's one of the organizers of it, I think that this is probably the best one of the 3 that I've been to. I thought I took a lot away from it. But anyhow, I just wanted to give you some food for
Yeah,
thought.
thank you for that comprehensive
Yeah, that was
report.
good to know.
Thank you, Peter. And now we're on to warrants.
Which I will jump into, but I'm probably out of, proper sync here. Sheila's name came up about 5 times in the last 10 minutes, and one of the things we had, I guess, talked about from the sidelines was giving Sheila the ability to continue to support this board.
Yes, I was just thinking the same
And
thing.
we didn't officially do that.
Yeah.
So do,
I don't know, what I was thinking about that was, can we introduce that into the agenda now?
Somebody would have to make a motion to discuss that at this point in the agenda, which someone's welcome to do, and then you have to take a vote on it, and then once you take a vote, and if you all agree, then you can discuss it at this
Okay.
point in the agenda.
So
well,
would you
then
like to make a
I'll make a
motion?
motion that we have a conversation
Okay.
about Sheila's.
Advisory.
Advisory
It's an advisory
capacity.
capacity.
Board.
I second the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
So as the new chair, I would be very much appreciative of working with Sheila to suck the knowledge out of her head that she has, and her background, and also to be able to consult with her regularly. And and Sheila has said to me, whoever the chair would be, that it would probably be a good idea for her to be connected with the chairperson. So I think that that's basically the issue. Does the select board agree that Sheila can serve as an advisory? And we would encourage and hope that Sheila would serve in an advisory capacity, both to the chair and to the select board generally.
And
Yeah,
she said that I'm sorry, Peter, I didn't mean to
Nope,
interrupt.
we started at the same time. Go ahead and finish your thought.
She also said that she would help as part of the budgeting process this year.
Yeah.
End of comment.
Yeah, so the 2 points, I was gonna make that as one point, that she also said that she wanted to be a part of it, you know, to make sure there's a good transition.
Yes.
But
So
I also
just-
wanted to just also add, in my previous comments, I do not in any way wish to insinuate that she was stepping down yet as EMD. She has not
Yeah,
specifically
no,
stated
no.
that.
Right.
No,
I just
but it
wanted that to be
raised her
under-
name enough in my head
No,
that
and
I had
had the
forgotten.
same, I had the same,
to.
very same response.
So-
So I don't think we need to discuss that any further.
Right.
We don't need a motion for that, and we are in agreement that we would love,
Right.
That we
we
would
would
like
love
to
and
have-
encourage Sheila to be an advisor
And give
to
her
this board
the
and this
ability
chair.
to do that.
Right.
with
Thank you very much.
email. Okay.
Warrants, please.
Warrants. So I will make the following, well, the motion pay the following warrants. Payroll week ending September 1, 2019 for $7,963.63. Payroll week ending September 8th, 2019 for $6,414.76. And expense warrant number 2005 for $31,113.07 for a grand total of $45,491.46. And regarding the expense warrant 2005, the major pieces of that stuck out to me were our highway department's sand and gravel, because they've been using a lot of it. Chloride, I think, has been purchased, and it looked like there was a lot of our VCLT insurance,
Yeah, what's our quarterly insurance?
our quarterly payment.
Do I have a second?
Yeah, yes.
All those in favor of accepting the warrants?
Aye.
And
Thank
just
you.
one point to note on the expense warrant is that a large majority of the cost of the gravel, not the gravel, the stone, and some of the gravel will be reimbursed from the grant on Carpenter Hill.
Great.
Awesome.
And moving on to our final thing is in communications, is that Sarah Coffey invited select board members from the Wyndham region to a meeting on broadband build-out. They changed the date of it. It is now going to be on September the 11th from 6 to 7 p.m. at Memorial Hall in Wilmington. And some staff members from the Department of Public Service will be there to start talking about the expansion that they are hoping to do.
And I had a long conversation with Sarah about this, and she really would like to have a member of the, I can't go. I would love to go, but I can't go that night. And so she.
What time is it again?
6 to 7 p.m.
6
in
to 7.
Wilmington.
What day of the week is that?
Wednesday.
I think it's a Wednesday.
Michael, can you go? Zom?
I'll check. I think it's probably likely that I could go. And I'm
Okay.
interested
And it
in
doesn't
topic.
have to be one, I mean, two would be,
Yeah.
or three would be
Well,
best.
we can't have 3.
Oh, you can have two.
We could have 2.
Yeah.
Because
Because
then
of the,
we'd have to warn the meeting.
Yep. But
so
2 is fine.
2 of you could go.
You can just show up, or do you need to pre-register?
It would be good to tell Sarah.
It would be good to let Sarah know, but
Okay.
there's
I'm
no
interested.
RSVP for the meeting.
Okay.
So, can we,
That'd be awesome.
take it that you will get in touch with Sarah?
Yes, if it's yes, I'll be in touch with her either way. How about
Okay,
that?
and Michael, you too?
Yeah.
All right, but one of you
And
could.
if Michael can't, I can't get to my
Oh, okay.
calendar because I'm currently offline, but it's a possibility.
Okay,
but
so then you
Michael-
three should communicate, because
Yeah.
I have to tell you that Sarah really stressed that how important it is. I mean, this is one of her major
Key issues,
goals
yes.
for representing our community, to get, better broadband or broadband and all. And so we really need the representation here at the meeting to show that Guilford is committed to
Yeah.
this. Yeah, thank
And
you very much.
Briefly, BCTV notified us of their annual meeting and invite town officials and select board members to attend. The annual members meeting is on Wednesday, September 18th from 6 to 7 p.m. in Brattleboro. If you wish to know more information, you can let me know. And then they have their producer awards party, which is on Thursday, the 24th of October, also in Brattleboro. The annual meeting is free. The awards party, there's a $5 donation recommended. There's going to be awards, videos, and a light dinner. So
Is
if you
that it
want,
for communications?
last one is an autumn cello celebration to be occurring at the Guilford Center Meeting House at 4042 Guilford Center Road on September the 13th, this Friday, at 7:30 p.m. to benefit the Guilford Free Library. And there's more information.
If anybody wants tickets, they're going very fast, but I have a few left. Let me know.
Is there a finite number of tickets?
Yes, because of the capacity of the meeting house.
And so
I've got
they're
mine.
$25 a piece. You can also
It
get
includes
tickets,
spectacular desserts.
and you can also get tickets
would
for
like
Laura
to-
Lawson Tucker.
Okay.
I've got money.
Okay.
I don't know if I can provide.
There you go.
I am done.
Okay, thank you, Peter, very much. That was splendid communication delivery. And now we're looking for a motion.
I will make a motion that we
Oh, may
adjourn.
I say
Oh.
something before that? Just
Okay.
in regard
Sure.
to the broadband meeting, if you could let Peter know that you're going, and Peter, if you could let me know
Absolutely.
who's going, that would be very helpful.
Absolutely.
And now I'll take a motion.
I will make a motion that we adjourn.
I will
Do I have a
second.
second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
A good first meeting as chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.